Okay. So, in fitting with our theme, Hi, how are you? Where our focus is on the outcasts and the freaks and the punks and those who don't traditionally fit in. We've just seen your coming of age psychedelic sci-fi horror film in which protagonist Mia flies our awkward flag with pride. Miguel, thank you for making a film for us Mias in a world full of Sarahs. Welcome to our festival.
Yeah, thank you so much, Joshua.
Sure.
Thanks.
Yeah, so to start, I really like the design of the masks, also the headsets, but especially the masks. I feel like they're both punk and also realistic for, what seems to be a possible near future. My question is, when do you imagine this film to be set in?
Well, I think I imagine to be set in the some sort of a parallel world, a little bit from the past, a little bit. I don't like my films to be perceived like as things that are happening right now, because I want to always to displace a bit the settings, no, and create a special atmosphere, no, where everything can happen. But it's a kind of in a parallel reality where all this technology is available. Actually, it's already available, so
Sure. Yeah,
it looks like retro now if I see what is happening around me.
sure. Can you talk a bit about the design of the masks and how you came up with that, even aesthetically?
Yes, it was through my friends, the Almoado brothers, that collaborated with me in Jesus Shows You the Way to the Highway. They create also the flies, the giant flies that are in the film. So it's a long time collaboration with them. I wanted to separate or to make two type of technology: the official one, which are this kind of headsets, and the mask was supposed to represent, danger, drug, this world of the unknown, no? And they base basically their research on cyberpunk and all this type of you know background, no? From the 80s. I didn't want it to be too much 80s or 90s because I think we move in another dimension. So all the films by, Cronenberg, and all the designs of Giger, they are a good base for me, but they seem a little bit all this oxide and tubes and like metal seems a little bit old, because I think we move into a much more cleaner somehow environment that hides the same horrible management of power, but it's not so like 80s cyberpunk. So it has some elements of this Giger and Cronenberg, but it goes a little bit more into the future, I would say.
Sure. Yeah, it feels very modern that way. And I think that's why for the coming of age, it just feels very grounded. Uh, you mentioned before we started recording that you teach. You're a professor at Tallinn University's film school. And I understand that you collaborated with students on this project. Can you talk about what that brought to the film?
Yes, very much, because I think the film is, created in through the reflection with my students about what are the big problems nowadays. One of the big problems for me was isolation, or for them, for me, it was isolation, and it's particularly strange, We all felt, I felt isolated when I was also and lonely when I was 18 or 19, but this time loneliness comes with the social media, no, the multiplication of activities and the multiplication of messages, no, which and everybody's connected, everybody's replying emails even in the middle of the class. So I was finding fascinating how the people could feel lonely if they are so full, but at the same time I understood that this loneliness was precisely because of this fragmentation of reality, of the social media, no? In social media, we are totally fragmenting the meaning every time, no?
Hmm.
Uh, you know, you read something about Palestine, and then the next time you are reading something about, you know, your best friend, and then the next time is about Ukraine, and then the next time. So it doesn't allow us to have kind of a steady idea of the universe, no, or of the world, no, a steady philosophical, you know, who I am in this, in all of this mess, who are my friends, what do we do, what would do we like, you know, and that I think is the loneliness comes from that. So I start to reflect in how could we reconnect somehow, even if it's in the movies, you can see it's a little bit parodical and even satirical, but there is a sense of reconnection to something important, no, to something that is essential, no? And through these ideas, I start reading about evolution and, you know, also about transhumanism, no? How the technologies could work to create another environment, perhaps where we could reconnect more, even if I am very much technophobic. And I don't think these machines are gonna allow us to reconnect more, but they also have some cracks, and there are cracks in the system. And maybe the, you know, artificial intelligence of the Tokyo Zoo finds these cracks to create something positive, no?
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
yes, it has to do with, you know, this feeling of loneliness in front of transhumanism, transformation, everything that is trans, that I think is gonna save us, no?
sure. Wow. And so working with students, did that come into play already during the writing phase?
Yes, well, basically during the writing, and then yes, coming to your question, yes, basically I didn't want to make a film. I'm 45, you know, that reflects the life of my, you know, post-teenage years now, no, and I want to include a lot of people that are, you know, in that situation. So the first persons that I contact were the production designers, Anita Krem and Lisa Mari Vic, and they brought this a little bit absurd world of objects, you know, and amazing psychedelic world in through art. And then yes, and then I started involving more and more my students, mostly for two reasons. One was our budget was small, and the second because it was a great opportunity to fill the film with young energy, and also and a good way of exchanging knowledge, you know, because we want to make a coming of age film, and at the same time, which we need to be surrounded by young people, and at the same time, the head of the teams of the were, you know, experienced. So it was a very beautiful way of, you know, sharing knowledge between two generations. But most of the crew were, you know, under 30. Like I was saying, 95% of the crew were under 30. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, that's cool. That must really bring a different energy.
It was totally amazing.
Mm.
The shooting was wonderful. Hannah Gross, which have been shooting with David Fincher, she came and we were a bit scared. Like, okay, she's gonna find you this summer camp here, and and she said this was the first. I mean, the most beautiful shooting she has ever been, and much better than Hollywood. And the spirit was so great, and he hated Fincher because he's an obsessive guy, and she loved us because we were kind of so free, and it really worked quite well.
Sure. Wow, that's great feedback to receive, I guess.
Yes.
Take that, Fincher.
Yeah, take that, Fincher, no?
That's great. Cool. You mentioned this youthful energy, and I want to talk about Mia a bit more specifically, as the representation of our festival theme. How did you come up with her character? Was that, yeah.
It's mostly autobiographical, no? I also belong to the punk scene of Madrid and to the underground. I had my bands before I even start making films, and I'm more proud of my music than of my films.
Mhm.
And yes, and there is this period when you are 18, 19, but you didn't find yet your friends, your real, you know, people that you connect with, and you still holding old friends, you know, from high school, from the area you grow up. So I was going in very much into, you know, clubs and discotheques that I didn't like until I found my, you know, and don't get me wrong, I was really happy with my friends. It was something that I didn't, it was odd. I didn't connect with this club culture at all. You know, I'm not this type of person. So I was, you know, going with my teenager friends and they were nice, but I didn't connect. So it took me some time until I discovered the underground scene of Madrid. And, you know, I started to find out that, wow, these people, you know, this music, these bands, you know, start listening to all this, you know, American punk, basically, from Minor Threat and the West Coast and Fugazi to, you know, more like a Bad Religion and No Effects and all the also Californian punk. And but that gave me this idea of, you know, do it yourself and producing our albums. So I think Mia is in this moment where she has to find her real friends and passion, and at the same time she's still, you know, like hanging out with her, you know, high school friend, no? And this is a very beautiful moment of discovery, but also very a bit sad and lonely moment.
Yeah, it's totally relatable. I think it's such a weird season of life as you come of age and you have to decide who's gonna stick around, and that can be a really sad process,
Yes.
but it's part of evolution, right?
And what do you like, you know, what you're gonna study? I also have a year off because I finished in September and there was no places in the university, and then I had a year there to, you know, to figure out. And it was very, very great to have that year. I went to the
Mhm.
United States, for a couple of months or three, traveling with my cousin with a car, and I read a lot. And then I decided that I wanted to study philosophy. So it was a very, you know, very meaningful year. Yeah.
Sure. So I have a kind of cheesy follow-up question for you. Um, since you've lived this, like now as the 45-year-old man that you are, what would you say to Mia at her kind of season of crossroads? What would your advice be?
I don't have any advice
You gotta just
because
go through it, right?
yeah, every life is different, you know. I never imagine. Well, I won't say have my advice is the opposite. I would say like I would never imagine I'm gonna end up, you know, living for so many years in Ethiopia, and then from Ethiopia jumping into Estonia, where I live now, and you know, having so many adventures and meeting so many people. I never, if when I was 20, somebody tell me, you know, you're gonna live some years in Ethiopia, then and first in Mexico, then in Ethiopia, then you're gonna find a job in Estonia, you're gonna have your baby, and you're gonna. I mean, never imagined that. So future is really unpredictable and wonderful, and it's great that nothing is written, no? That you can really do whatever you want and also adapt to whatever you have at hand, because you know it's not that I have chosen everything, but I took the opportunities that were around me trying to survive and to do my thing, no?
Yeah, that's so funny. It's very similar to my story. I never imagined that I'd be in Germany. I'm from the States. I lived in Japan before I came here, and a lot of it was survival and a lot of it was struggle, but so much of it has been beautiful. And you just kind of say yes and hope to be pleasantly surprised, I guess. Yeah,
Yeah,
great.
that's
I did want to talk about that specifically because there is globalism in this film, right? Like multiple languages are
Mhm.
spoken, there's Interpol and stuff. And so, yeah, I mean, you're from Spain, right? And then Mexico, Ethiopia, Estonia. What is your relationship to the globe as a whole? Or just, I don't know, can you talk a bit more about your relationships to these places, or how this came to be? Or, yeah.
Yeah, yes, I, you know, I've never been so much fan of my own, you know, folkloric culture, but you know, I never, and I've never been very fan of any kind of cultural, strong cultural identity. because I didn't grow up like that. I grew up, my identity was Nietzsche when I was studying philosophy. It was Fugazi, then it was, I don't know, the landscapes of the south of Spain, and then was Buñuel. So my identity was very fragmented and plural, no? So I always believed that we shouldn't go back to the roots of the identity. No, I am not very much, believer in roots. I mean, I am not against, but in this moment where the globalization comes very strong and everybody's kind of, let's go back to our roots and to our identity and who we are. We say, no, let's go back, let's go to the future, and let's build something new and
Mm.
something beautiful. So I have been always curious of other stuff, other people, other cultures, other ways, and this how I went to Ethiopia, just to, because I didn't believe what the media was saying about Africa and in general. I met some friends in Ethiopia. Then I started working for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and then I say, but let's go to Ethiopia. I like very much the atlas, the runners, the Ethiopian runners, and I don't know. I think the places attract me because I found something interesting that I go, some project or something. In the case of Ethiopia was the runners, and I had the opportunity to work there. And through the runners, I start, getting other type of inspirations and other things that I wanted to learn, like the music. The Ethiopian music was the second thing, with Mahmoud Ahmed, Mulatu Astetke, Alemayo Eshete, all this music from the 60s in Addis Abeba, and all this, blues explosion of Addis Abeba in the 60s, and, student protest in the 60s, Addis Abeba. It was incredible. It was such a great research. And then I went to Estonia because I met my girlfriend, and I started researching about, also like the Soviet times. And, I'm always interested in power. So how power displays. I don't know. I go like the wind. I don't go to Estonia. So I kind of find interesting what it was happening there, and try to research and, make a film with what I learned. So I don't make a film about my own identity or my own culture. I want to make films about what I discover. So that's why they are very globalized, no? Because I discover, you know, globalized connections, in international relations, in the way the technology works all around the world, in the way power is displayed, through, groups and mafias. And
Mhm.
uh, yes, well, this is what drags me to the different places.
Sure. Yeah, that's great. I want to talk about one more theme from the film. Um, so there's this transhumanist angst, right, regarding technology, but specifically you touch on like this idea of mindfulness, and there's this kind of almost dopamine metaphor with the mask,
Mhm.
and these are definitely social media buzzwords. Um, so why did you choose to like critically target these concepts specifically?
Because I think they are, the cheapest concepts that now are commercialized, no? And I don't have anything against meditation. Actually, I think it's very important to come back to a certain total understanding of the world, to stop our train of thoughts, to think about who we are. So, in a very deep sense, this is very important, no? But the way is, the way it's socialized is fucking ridiculous, no? Estonia, there is kind of a new wave of esotericism, no? And then you go one week to Peru to do ayahuasca, and then you come back like a new person, whatever. That's fucking bullshit. Because things, introspection and change, it requires very much effort, and requires a philosophy and a way of life, and I learned it that for many years. Your topic is, hi, how are you, and it's Daniel Johnston, no? And it's his own life dedicated to the way he wanted to live, the way he wanted to do the things, and his music and his passion, no? So I think nothing, there is no shortcuts. You know, you don't go 1 week to Peru and take ayahuasca and come back and you are a new person or whatever. So, and this is the way capitalism treats the things, you know, like a short, you know, learning process, very splashy and flashy, you know, headlines, and everything requires learning and effort. And so I wanted you know, to bring that because I think it was very ridiculous.
Totally. I mean, all I can think of is just these pop psychology apps with in-app purchases, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But at the same time, then I wanted to hide something really, really hard behind and really transformative, you know,
Hmm.
under this kind of a smoke cellar, Dr. Mindfulness, you know. So he's
Sure.
kind of he doesn't know even what is he doing, but something is really happening there.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
kind of.
sure. Great. Well, as we wrap up, my last question is just, it's a critical film. It's a nervous film about the way forward, and yet talking to you now, you mentioned the cracks, and I feel there's an optimism. Where do you, when you have a hopeless day, where do you find optimism about the way forward?
Well, it's difficult to say because difficult to be optimistic nowadays with well, with the war in Ukraine, the genocide in Palestine. It's very, very difficult to find because it's not because there is a genocide in Palestine, right? But because there is, you know, the international system is cracking and democracy is cracking. You know, I have many friends in Germany, and I know the situation is quite difficult. You know, the way the people can express themselves and everything. So there is everything is kind of cracking, falling apart, but at the same time it's changing. So I always, you know, go back to the people that have been making art, beauty, and you know, they also it's always healing. You know, from listening to Johann Sebastian Bach to Fugazi. You know, go back to their albums because and to the music because there is always something healing about people that have dedicated their own life in producing beauty instead of destroying each other. No,
Yeah,
a good book, good music.
great. Yeah, it's powerful. Yeah. And your film as well, right? It just kind of, yeah, I think films are also just so comforting in
And
such a way.
films, yeah, well, some of them are more disturbing, but
That's okay
I
too.
hope my film is not disturbing because I'm a very skeptical person, so
Mm.
I always like humor.
Yeah,
So no, it's not a horror film
yeah,
actually.
it's good.
It's a small joke.
Sure. Well, thank you for your film. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. We're excited about what you're going to do in the future. And yeah, we wish you all the best, Miguel. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for the festival and for being there.
Sure. All right.